There comes a time in every person's life when the noise from the outside becomes louder than the voice within. We start measuring our worth by the applause we get, the attention we receive, or the validation others are willing to give us. We shape ourselves around opinions that were never meant to define us. And in doing so, we lose the very essence of who we are, but let me tell you something. You don't have to live like that. You don't have to keep chasing people who never intended to stay. You don't have to mold yourself to fit the expectations of those who don't even see you clearly. There's a deeper calling on your life, and it doesn't require approval from those who couldn't carry your vision if you handed it to them in plain sight. You see, we often find ourselves exhausted, not because we are doing too much, but because we are giving too of ourselves to people who don't even know what to do with us. We pour our time, our emotions, our attention into relationship situations that return nothing but confusion and emptiness. And still we stay. Still, we try harder to give more, hoping that somehow, if we just become a little more like what they want, they'll love us right. But love that demands you to lose yourself is not love at all. It's bondage. My friend, you were not created to shrink for others. You were not designed to constantly explain your worth to those who are too blind to see it. The moment you begin to chase their approval is the moment you hand them the power to define your joy, your peace, and your purpose. And I want to remind you tonight, only the one who created you has the authority to define you. And when he looks at you, he sees purpose, he sees value. He sees someone worthy of joy, worthy of rest, worthy of being loved without conditions. So why do we keep giving away our peace so cheaply? Why do we spend sleepless nights worrying about who left, who stayed, who talked about us, who misunderstood us? That is not your burden to carry. What they say about you is not your truth. What they did to you is not your identity. And if someone could walk away from your life, let them go. That was divine protection you didn't recognize. That rejection was direction. That silence was an answer. That goodbye was a blessing wrapped in pain. And the sooner you stop trying to fix what God removed, the sooner you can begin to focus on what truly matters, your healing, your purpose, your growth. You can't run your race looking over your shoulder, trying to make sure everyone who started with you is still clapping for you. Some people were never meant to go the whole journey, and that's okay. You were never meant to carry them forever. See, the truth is, peace doesn't come when everyone around you likes you. Peace comes when you like yourself, when you honor yourself, when you stop breaking yourself down to fit into places that weren't built for your soul. That kind of peace is unshakable. That kind of peace comes when you focus inward and upward, not outward. It comes when you realize your value isn't found in applause or attention, but in your ability to stand strong even when no one is watching. So if you're waiting for the world to validate you, you'll be waiting forever. Because the world can't give you what it doesn't understand. But if you can shift your focus inward, if you can learn to love yourself, to speak truth over yourself, to build from within, you won't need the claps, the comments, the confirmations. You'll already be full. And let me say this plainly, you don't have to answer every critic. You don't have to explain your growth to those who stayed behind. Not everyone will understand why you're walking away, why you're no longer accessible, why your energy feels different. That's all right. They weren't meant to understand. They were only meant to be part of a chapter, not the whole story. And the story doesn't stop because they left. In fact, this is where your story starts to unfold in ways you never imagined. Stop watering dead plants hoping they'll bloom again. Stop giving your light to those who are committed to dimming it. You owe it to yourself to focus, to heal, to rise. And I promise you, the moment you stop looking to them and start looking within, everything will change. Your strength will return. Your clarity will sharpen, and your peace, that deep, unshakable peace, will become your foundation. Let them go. There are moments in life when holding on feels easier than letting go. We cling to what's familiar, even if it's hurting us. We grip tightly to memories, people, and past seasons as though they define who we are. But my friend, they do not. You see, growth is often not found in the things we accumulate, but in the things we release. And for many of us, the greatest weight we carry is not in our present, but in our past. So many of us are walking through life with chains that no longer belong on us, chains of regret, chains of broken relationships, the chains of old wounds that were never truly allowed to heal. We say we've moved on, but deep inside, we're still skinning the same pain, rehearsing the same hurt, replaying the same disappointment. And yet, being that we wonder why we feel so heavy, why we feel tired in our soul. I want to tell you tonight, you cannot heal in a place you were only meant to pass through. Some of you are living in a memory, trying to resurrect something that was never meant to last forever. But you can't step into your future while dragging the weight of your past behind you. God is not calling you to stay in that chapter. He's calling you to turn the page. It's easy to stay connected to what we've known, even if it no longer serves us. The comfort of routine, the familiarity of people, even if they were unhealthy, even if they were toxic, they made sense to us. And so we stay. But growth does not happen in comfort. Growth demands movement. It demands obedience. It demands surrender. I know letting go hurts. I know it can feel like loss. But sometimes the most painful things are the most necessary. That heartbreak you went through, that betrayal, that closed door. It wasn't meant to destroy you. It was meant to deliver you. It was meant to awaken you to something greater. Sometimes God has to break our hearts to save our lives. Sometimes he removes the people we couldn't live without so we can learn to live fully in him. You see, when we hold on to the past, we limit what God can do in our future. When we keep trying to fix what was, we delay what could be. You can't receive new blessings with your hands full of old burdens. And no matter how hard you try, no matter how deeply you love, you cannot force someone to stay who's already chosen to leave. You cannot relive a moment that was only meant to teach you something. Let it go. I believe there's freedom available for you. Freedom from the voices that haunt, from the failures that shame you, from the people who walked away. But that freedom requires trust. Trust that even when you don't understand why something ended, you know it ended for a reason. Trust that God is not punishing you. He's positioning you. He's preparing you. He's pulling you out of what you thought you needed so he can give you what you truly deserve. And here's the truth. Many are afraid to speak, and some doors are not closed by accident. Some relationships are not lost by mistake. Some endings are answered to prayers you didn't even know how to pray. You asked for peace, so he removed the chaos. You asked for clarity, so he ended the confusion. You asked for healing, so he took away the very thing that was keeping you broken. Don't run back to what hurt just because it's familiar. Don't settle for a version of yourself that is smaller than what God intended. You're not created to live in yesterday's shadow. You were meant to walk in the light of new beginnings. And those new beginnings are only possible when you let go of what's behind. I want to speak this clearly. You are not your past. You are not your pain. You are not your failure. You are not what they said about you. You are not the mistake you made. You are more. You are chosen. You are capable. You are called. But to step into that identity, you must release the old one. You must stop trying to go back to Egypt when God is calling you to the promised land. So whatever it is you're holding on to, that old love, that old wound, that old version of yourself, tonight, you can lay it down. You can choose growth over grief. You can choose freedom over fear. You can choose to trust the one who sees the whole picture, even when all you can see is the pain of the moment. Don't let your destiny be held hostage by your history. Let it go. We live in a world that tells us to give, to serve, to pour ourselves out for everyone else. And there's nothing wrong with that. There's beauty in sacrifice. There's joy in serving others. But somewhere along the way, many of us have forgotten something essential. We've forgotten that we are human, that we need rest, that we need boundaries, and that we need to be poured into too. We believe the lie that taking care of ourselves is selfish, when in truth, it is sacred. There's nothing selfish about protecting your peace. There is nothing wrong with saying no when your spirit is tired. You see, you cannot give what you don't have. You cannot lift others when your own soul is sinking. You cannot carry everyone else's burdens and still expect to have the strength to carry your own. At some point, you have to pause. At some point, you have to look inward and ask, when was the last time I took care of me? I know we were raised to believe that good people never say no. That love means constant sacrifice. That strength means showing up for everyone every time, no matter the cost. But my friend, that kind of living is not strength. That's survival. And God did not call you to survive. He called you to thrive. And to thrive, you must learn to concern yourself without shame and without apology. Now, let me be clear, focusing on yourself is not about arrogance. It's not about selfish ambition or living for your own gain. It's about wholeness. It's about knowing that the best version of you, the one who can love well, serve well, lead well, only shows up when your spirit is healthy, when your mind is clear, and when your heart is at peace. And that doesn't happen by accident. That happens when you choose to make yourself a priority. Many of us have spent years putting ourselves last. We've learned to tolerate stress, to ignore fatigue, to numb pain, just to keep going. And maybe that's what was needed in a hard season. But here, Meg, just because you needed to survive back then doesn't mean you're supposed to stay in survival now. God didn't bring you this far for you to live depleted. He brought you this far to show you there's more joy, more rest, more purpose. But you'll miss it if you keep neglecting yourself. It is not weakness to rest. It is not failure to step back. It is not wrong to say, I need time to heal, to breathe. Jesus himself withdrew to quiet places to pray, to reflect, to renew his strength. He wasn't running away from responsibility. He was preparing for it. And some of us need to stop running toward everything and start retreating toward renewal. Because you cannot lead on empty. You cannot love well when you're running on fumes. Even the strongest need refilling. And maybe tonight you feel like you've lost yourself. Maybe you've given so much to others that you don't even recognize who you are anymore. You've lost your voice trying to keep everyone else happy. You've ignored your own needs because you didn't want to disappoint anyone. But let me tell you something. God never asked you to abandon yourself to prove your love. He asked you to love your neighbor as yourself. That means you matter too. Your story matters. Your story matters. Your healing matters. This is your permission to stop neglecting yourself. This is your reminder that it's not just okay to care for your heart. It's necessary. Speak time in silence kindly to yourself. Let go of people who only take. Say no without guilt. Set boundaries with love. Make time to dream again, to laugh, to breathe again, because when you start loving yourself the way God loves you, everything changes. You begin to walk differently. You begin to speak with more truth. You begin to live with more peace, not because life is easier, but because you are no longer at war within. Some people won't understand your new focus. They'll say you've changed, and you have. You've grown. You've chosen to rise. And those who truly love you will not be offended by your healing. They'll celebrate it. But even if no one claps for you, even if no one sees what you're doing behind the scenes, do it anyway. Because the reward isn't in their applause. The reward is in the peace that settles over you when you finally choose yourself. You are not a machine. You are not just a helper, a fixer, a provider. You are a soul that needs rest, a soul that deserves care. A soul that must be nourished if you ever hope to live out the fullness of your calling. Take care of yourself. There is something deeply liberating about realizing that not everyone is meant to walk with you forever. And yet, how many of us still carry the burden of trying to hold on to every person, every connection, every relationship, no matter how much it costs us? We try to bring everybody along afraid of what it might mean if we let someone go. We confuse loyalty with bondage and love with obligation. But the truth is, not everyone deserves a seat at your table, especially if they come only to take and never to give. Now, hear me closely. This isn't about pride. This isn't about thinking you're better than anyone else. This is about knowing your worth. It's about recognizing when someone's presence is no longer aligned with your peace, your purpose, or your growth. Some people were only meant to teach you something for a season, and not to stay with you for a lifetime. And when their season is over, holding on to them only causes you pain. You see, when you're growing, when you're healing, when you're evolving, not everyone will celebrate that. Some people only loved you when you were broken. Some only stayed because they could control you when your self-worth was low. But the moment you begin to rise, the moment you begin to walk in strength and clarity, their comfort begins to fade. And it's in those moments that God shows you who's really for you and who is just there for what they could get from you. You don't have to beg anyone to respect you. You don't have to convince anyone to treat you with kindness. Love that must be earned by suffering is not love at all. And I believe some of you have been tolerating disrespect in the name of loyalty. You've been shrinking yourself to keep the peace. You've been walking on eggshells to keep people close, even when you know deep down they're no longer walking in the same direction. My friend, God never called you to carry everyone. He didn't ask you to sacrifice your calling or your peace to maintain a connection. He already told you to release. It's not your job to fix people who don't want to grow. It's not your burden to hold together relationships that are rooted in dysfunction. And the longer you keep making room for people who misuse you, the more space you take away from those who would honor you. I know it hurts. I know it's not easy to let go of someone you once prayed for, someone you once shared your dreams with, someone you never imagined life without. But what if I told you that letting go is not rejection? It's redirection. What if the very people you're afraid to lose are the ones blocking your blessing? What if God is saying, trust me with this release, trust me to fill the space you're afraid to empty? Sometimes we try to keep people at our table because we're afraid of loneliness. We think that an occupied space, even if it's harmful, is better than an empty one. But an empty seat makes room for someone sent by God. And when you make space, you show heaven that you're ready for more peace, more clarity, more alignment. Letting go doesn't mean you stop loving someone. It doesn't mean you wish them harm. It simply means you love yourself enough to stop allowing your life to be weighed down by what no longer serves your purpose. You can forgive people and still remove their access. You can wish them well and still walk away. You can bless them and still set boundaries. Some of you are stepping into a new season, a season that requires a new level of discipline, of focus, of intentionality. And not everyone will understand that. That's all right. You were never meant to be understood by everyone. You were meant to be obedient to your calling. And obedience sometimes looks like walking away from what's comfortable, even when it confuses the people around you. If you keep making room for what you've outgrown, you'll miss the beauty of what's ahead. And if you continue to hold on to people who only drain you, you'll never have the strength to pursue what God has placed in your heart. This is your moment to release, to surrender, to trust that what is meant for you will never require you to lose yourself. So take your seat at the table, the one God prepared for you. And don't be afraid to leave a few chairs empty. And the right people will come and they'll bring peace with them. But until then, protect your space, guard your heart, honor your journey. Not everyone deserves a seat at your table. Life has a way of taking us down roads we never asked to travel. Doors close, people leave, plans fall apart. And in those moments, we find ourselves asking, why? Why did this happen? Why now? Why me? And if we're not careful, we begin to believe that every loss is a punishment, every setback a sign that we failed. But I want you to hear me tonight. Not every detour is a mistake. Sometimes the road you didn't plan is the exact road that leads you to your destiny. What looks like rejection may just be redirection. So often we cry over what we thought we needed, over the path we were sure was meant for us. We think, if I could just have that one opportunity back, if that person hadn't walked away, if that door hadn't slammed shut, I'd be where I'm supposed to be. But what if that closed door was mercy? What if that goodbye was grace? What if what you thought was a loss was really heaven saying, not here, not this. I have something better for you. You see, we don't see the whole picture. We only see the chapter we're in, but God sees the entire story. And he knows when a relationship will only break you down. He knows when a job will distract you from your purpose. He knows when a season has run its course, even when you're still trying to hold on. And in his love, he redirects us gently sometimes, painfully at other times, but always with a purpose. And yet, how many of us try to fight that redirection? We try to force things back into place. We try to reopen doors God has shut. We try to call people back who have already shown us they were never meant to stay. We think we're being strong, but all we're doing is delaying the freedom that comes from letting go. Because holding on to what's broken won't heal you. It will only keep you stuck. And being stuck is not your calling. There is something holy about trusting the redirection, about saying, I don't understand it right now, but I trust the one who does. It takes faith to release your grip on something you wanted. It takes courage to walk away from what's familiar. But when you do, you create space for something new, for healing, space for clarity, and most of all, space for God to move in ways you couldn't imagine while you were still clinging to the past. Do you remember those moments in your life when you wouldn't survive the loss? Maybe it was the end of a friendship, the collapse of a dream, the silence after someone you loved walked away. And yet here you are, still standing, maybe not without scars, but stronger because I'm wiser, more grounded, more aware of who you are and what you truly need. That's what redirection does. It breaks you open, not to destroy you, but to rebuild you. Some of the greatest blessings come wrapped in the most painful moments. Some of the greatest growth begins in the middle of confusion. You thought it was over, but it was just a shift. You thought you were forgotten, but you were being protected. And now you're being positioned for what's next, for what's yours, for what will not drain you or harm you, but build you and bless you. I've seen people spend years mourning a door that closed, never realizing that something far greater was waiting just around the bend. Everything has to be in them, but you can't see if you're always looking back. You can't walk forward if your feet are stuck in yesterday, and you can't hear the voice of God clearly if you're still echoing the voices of people who left you behind. So I ask you tonight, what are you holding on to God has already released you from? What plan have you refused to surrender? What version of your life are you still trying to force, even though your spirit knows it no longer fits? Redirection, not punishment. It's alignment. It's preparation. And yes, sometimes it comes with loss. Sometimes it comes with tears. But every step you take in obedience, every moment you choose trust over fear is a step closer to the life you were born to live. You don't have to understand everything to be at peace. You only have to believe that you are being led by a hand that cannot fail. So if the door closed, let it stay closed. If the path shifted, walk it anyway. If someone left, bless them and move forward, because what's ahead is greater than what's behind. And if you've been redirected and it's only you're being realigned with something greater than you can imagine, the redirection was never the end. It was the beginning. There's something sacred about walking your own path. In a world where everyone wants to tell you who to be, how to live, and where you should be by now, it takes strength, deep, quiet, unshakable strength to focus on your own journey and trust it. We live in a culture that thrives on comparison. You open your eyes in the morning, and before you've even spoken to God, you're already seeing someone else's life, someone else's success, someone else's highlight reel. And if you're not careful, you'll begin to question everything about your own path, your own timing, your own worth. But let me remind you tonight, your journey is yours. It's not theirs. And just because your pace is different doesn't mean you're behind. And just because your blessings look doesn't mean you're forgotten. Doesn't work by man's timeline. He's not in a rush and he's never late. What he's building in you, what he's preparing you for, what he's shaping your heart to carry requires time. It requires stillness. And above all, it requires focus, not on him, on him and on who he's calling you to become. You are not here to live someone else's story. You are not here to measure your life by someone else's milestones. You are here for a purpose that is entirely your own. And if you spend your days looking sideways, trying to match someone else's journey, you'll miss the beauty of your own. You'll miss the quiet victories. You'll overlook the sacred lessons. You'll rush through seasons that were meant to shape you. And that, my friend, is not what you were made for. Do you know how many people are exhausted not because life is too heavy, but because they're carrying a weight that was never meant for them? They're living for applause instead of peace. They're running a race they never chose. They're trying to keep up with people who were never meant to be their standard. And all the while, their own path, the one marked with grace, the one filled with purpose, sits waiting for them to look inward instead of outward, waiting for them to trust that where they are is not where they'll stay, but it's where they need to be right now. And let me tell you, when you begin to focus on your own journey, when you tune out the noise and listen to the still, small voice within, everything begins to change. You stop rushing. You stop doubting. You stop measuring your worth by someone else's success. You start living with intention. You start seeing progress in the quiet places. You start understanding that growth doesn't always look like more. Sometimes it looks like less. Less striving, less pretending, less comparing. You don't have to post about your healing for it to be real. Be in that you don't need a crowd to confirm your calling. You don't need their approval to walk in your anointing. Some of your most powerful breakthroughs will happen in silence, in solitude, in seasons where it feels like no one sees you but God. And that's where your strength is born. That's where your roots grow deep. That's where you become unshakable. Not because of what's happening around you but because of what's being built within you. Some of you have been running yourself rag trying to meet expectations that were never yours to begin with. You're tired, not from the journey, but from trying to keep pace with people who aren't even headed in the same direction. And tonight, I want to give you permission to stop. Stop comparing. Stop chasing. Stop believing the lie that you're behind. You're not becoming. You're being refined. And no one else's timeline can run what God is doing in you. It's not about being first. It's about being faithful. It's not about how quickly you get there. It's about how deeply you're rooted when you arrive. And if you stay focused on your own journey, you'll discover that everything you need has been inside you all along. The clarity, the strengths, the fire. You just needed to stop looking at them and start looking within. You just needed to believe that your path, with all its turns and valleys and waiting seasons, is still holy ground. So walk your road with confidence, walk with grace, even when no one claps, even when it feels quiet, even when you see others soaring while you're still learning how to stand. Because what God has for you is not behind you. It's not beside you. It's not in someone else's hands. Everything to be in, it's ahead of you, waiting for you to keep moving forward. Your journey is yours.